You're an Etsy shop owner and you work with a print-on-demand company and you prepared for Q4. October is over, and did it go how you thought? Okay, so maybe it didn't. Now what? I've gone through 4 Q4s at this point. If you're new here, hi, I'm simply Shawna. On this channel, we talk about Etsy, connecting it with a print-on-demand company, and creating products like t-shirts. Q4 is a period of time, the last quarter of the year, October, November, and December. And it is a period of time that could potentially make you more profit than any other single period of time in the year. It will oftentimes make you whatever you made all year long, all over again. So doubling your profit for the year. We're going to start by taking a look at all of my Q4s, and we're going to see what can happen over time from one Q4 to the next, the rapid growth that can happen. Now, don't you click away from this video, because it might be what keeps you motivated throughout this really important time as we ramp up to Black Friday weekend. Because I am going to tell you what I did after a disappointing October, and I'm going to share with you what I am going to encourage you to do even if you had a disappointing October. So let's give you some context of exactly what was going on that first year I opened my shop. You can see here I didn't get a whole lot of traction. And then as we move through these months here, I was listing a lot. I had, by the time we get 12 months in, which would have been here, I have 2,000 listings. So that is what it took me to get more and more visits, 2,000 listings. You can imagine I was pretty frustrated these first couple of months. Not a whole lot happening. And then finally I start to get a bump up in August. This is because I had been working very diligently on the teacher niche. I will leave a link to a resource I created about the teacher niche down below if it'd be something you'd be interested in. Finally, I got traction because of my consistent stabs in the teacher niche. And then moving into September, my teacher sales were still pretty decent up until about the second week of September. And then I kind of fell off the face of the Etsy earth. I seemed invisible. None of the stuff I was making for Q4 was getting seen. I was not ranking in the algorithm in those areas like I had worked myself up in the algorithm for the teacher niche, because I had been listing in the teacher niche all of these months, which led to this big bump, right? So here I dropped. Going into October, I was still pretty disappointed because I was not yet matching the steam that I had gained in August. Most of this happened toward the last 2 weeks of October, by the way. But then interesting enough, look at the fast growth I had in November and December, like a lot more growth. My feelings this October right here were, oh, well, I guess this just isn't really going to be great. But then look what happened in November and December. So now let's take a deeper look at these 3 months here, October, November, and December. So first, let's take a quick peek at what it looked like in my shop my very first Q4. I had just opened my shop during the month of October, so I didn't have much time to get in there. This graph is showing you visits for the months I opened in October, and I actually made most of that revenue, $1,046. You might be looking at that and going, well, geez, I wish I made that in my first 3 months. But let me tell you a little bit about that before you think this was bigger and more grandiose than it was. Even though I had the fewest amount of visits in October, a majority of that revenue was made in October. I was a school teacher. I was going back to school after being out with all the shutdowns with coronavirus. I created a very niche down shirt about going back to school after all of that. A principal happened to find that shirt and bought 33 of them for her staff. And so that was nearly like 600, maybe 600 and change of that revenue. But then it was crickets for quite a time after that. The other niches that I was in was the aunt niche, the grandma niche, just like teacher niche. These were also niches that I was very interested in. I was an aunt and my mom was a grandma. I was also in the Jeep girl niche. You don't want to do that. That's trademarked, but I didn't know better at the time. So my second sale was a Jeep Girl shirt. And my third, fourth, and fifth sales were aunt shirts. Now, the aunt and grandma shirts I was creating were all personalized. You could add your nieces and nephews' names to the aunt shirt, and you could add grandchildren's names to the t-shirts for grandma. For those of you interested in this kind of behind the scenes look at a six-figure seller's shop and what it looked like in the beginning, I'll also tell you that I did try some not personalized items for aunt and grandma, and I didn't have any luck with those. The other thing here to note, I didn't sell any Halloween related items. I did make a bunch. I did not sell any of them. And I made a bunch of Christmas items. I was spitting out like 40 listings a week. I started with a fire in my belly, and I just was all in on this. So I was spending many hours every week right from the beginning here. With all the Christmas listings I did, I only sold one Christmas shirt, and it was the pink Christmas niche, which is very broad. It wasn't like a teacher pink Christmas. It was just pink Christmas. I only sold it once. It did not sell the following year. I just kind of got lucky with that sale. And a majority of those other sales that you're seeing that came through with that full amount of $1,046, my mom had to have gone in and bought at least 15 shirts. That's another big chunk of that. She has just about any grandma shirt I've ever put in my shop. And then the other sales came from me just kind of playing around with some other random stuff. So I was working pretty regularly in the aunt niche, in the grandma niche, and in the teacher niche, and then I would just and in the Jeep Girl niche, which I eventually, a couple months later, had to take all of those listings out. And then I dabbled and kind of played with different areas to see what I could get cooking up. I did play with some mugs. I made some fall-themed mugs and sold 3 or 4 of those. I tried running ads to them. I was losing money on the ads, so I did take that off, but as a result, I did get a couple of sales. I also made a funny mug for my dad as one of his Christmas gifts. I listed that and I sold it once. So a couple of takeaways I really want you to take with you from what I've shared so far. One, definitely pick some niches that you want to build out. Think about adding personalization, since that was how I got a number of my first sales. Also, if you get into some bigger niches, which I suggest you do, like the teaching niche down to very specific places within that niche, like Black History teacher shirts or teaching division math teacher shirts, or in my case, it was going back to school after coronavirus. Build out a couple of niches, trying out a lot of different designs in these particular niches, and then pick a couple spots to maybe dabble with like I did. This will help you learn what's working for you, and then you can make better decisions moving forward with that knowledge. And also, don't feel bad if you're thinking you didn't do quite as well as I did in a 3-month period of time. In that 3-month period of time, you also have to consider that I got pretty close to 500 listings in my shop in that short amount of time. And then you also have to consider that out of those 26 orders, maybe around 8, if I'm lucky, 10 of them were actually organic customers. Now moving on to the next Q4. At this point, we'll be entering Q4 with me being on Etsy for about 12 months. I start to gain a little bit of traction in the teacher niche, which is the niche that I had been building out every single month over time. I had that one crazy fun sale from the teacher niche right at the beginning, but after that, I did not do what I should have done. I'll loop back and tell you more about what I should have done after that first teacher sale. I waited a while before doing this thing, and so it was really slow going, and I didn't use the momentum from that first sale to help launch this. It took me many months and many teacher listings to start gaining that momentum and that traction back up in the teacher niche. So before Q4, I started to grab some traction there. And then heading into Q4, with the fact that I had been rounding out my shop in certain niches over time, so there was a big showing of listings in those particular niches, and also combined with the fact that I had mustered up some momentum in my shop in the teacher niche, and I was getting daily sales because of that niche. And then thirdly, because of the fact that I was listing so regularly, and I actually came in to my second Q4 with nearly 2,000 listings, I was able to do a lot better in this next Q4, which is really the Q4 I consider my official first Q4. Here you see the revenue for these 3 months bumps up from around $1,000 the year before to nearly $60,000 this second Q4. So $58,912 revenue. Notice that this particular year, October is pretty low, November is a nice bump up, and December is even higher. This will be the last time you see my December higher than my November. And this is what's going on at this point in my Etsy journey. Those November numbers, most of those sales happen closer to the holiday. This is really my first Q4 because I gained zero momentum the year before. I'm basically a new shop going into Q4 with absolutely nothing working for me in the algorithm as far as Q4 niches are concerned. I haven't proven to Etsy that I can sell Q4 related items just yet. And as a result, my items are getting seen later in the season. So I'm not making all of those sales at the beginning of November. It was really maybe two weeks into November, I started making some, and then like the week before, really around Black Friday weekend was when really things started picking up. And I kept listing, and I suggest that you do the same all the way till Black Friday. For the entirety of this year, I make around $33,000 profit. It was right around $14,000 or $15,000 coming into Q4, and then I more than doubled it during Q4. But the only reason I was able to do that is because I kept listing like a little crazy person all the way until Black Friday, Cyber Day, Monday weekend. So I implore you to do the same, with the intention of making each design even a little better than the last, and always based on market research. Because really, I didn't have the entire month of November for my sales to go crazy, because I think in a lot of people's Etsy journeys, their first Q4, they got to put a lot of elbow grease in, and they don't start seeing their efforts rewarded until toward the end of that month. And a lot of people will then, during the month of November, not list so hard. So at the end of the month, they don't have the listings behind them to make them worthy of getting caught up in the algorithm, to give them enough to get them caught up in the algorithm. You're going to have to work on blind faith for a little while. At least that's what I did. But you know what? If I can do it, why not you? And that's how I felt about it. If other people could do it, the YouTubers that were talking to me, well, why the heck wouldn't I be able to? So let me just lean into what everyone is saying, believe that I can do it, and this is what wound up happening. And again, you could see my December was actually better than my November, because those sales didn't start happening until around Black Friday weekend, when the search volumes on Etsy for those items were really rising. I am continually feeding the flames. I'm feeding the algorithm with these listings. Finally, I get to take off with a couple of my listings. So I make some serious sales right there at the end of November. And then that carries through into like the first week and a half of December. And I made even more at that time. Now, this will be the last year that ever happens, because you're going to see in a second, for the following year, I get to make sales because of the efforts I made this Q4. I get to see sales earlier the next Q4, which means I get to make a lot more money the next Q4. Now going into my third Q4, I have continued to list like a fiend, and I am very much rewarded with a revenue for these 3 months of October, November, and December in 2022 of $233,885. You'll see that my December is much lower than my November, because November will wind up being your really, really big month after you really break through into the Q4 niches, especially if you keep feeding them. At this point this year, in 2022, I got to see sales as early as July for my Christmas items. Now, heading into Q4 of last year, 2023, you'll see again that November is my biggest month, and I have a total revenue for these 3 months combined of $351,772. The really cool thing is that each Q4 you go into, you start selling from the listings that you got fired up the year before. And then as you continue to feed the algorithm and you continue to make new designs and your skills are so much improved with all of this experience that you have, you've got new things that are hitting off and firing up and making you money along with the older ones that are still making you money. And this kind of momentum just keeps increasing, and you are able to make who knows how much. If you'd like me to do a follow-up video in a couple of weeks so you know how this Q4 goes, my 5th Q4, let me know down in the comments. When you're headed down to the comments, you have to pass the like button. So maybe you could just boop that like button if you're still here and you think you found value from this video. My takeaway for you here is please keep listing all the way till Black Friday weekend. Keep doing it. List like you believe this is going to work. That is the belief you need in order to put the effort into this that you need to put into it in order for this to pay off. Oh, I almost forgot. I mentioned earlier that after I got that initial first sale, that teacher sale of like 33 shirts, there was something that I should have done that really would have helped me have faster traction in my shop than I did. And I wanted to tell you about that. I'm going to tell you about it in this video here. But don't head over there until after that tip from Tucker. Tucker, take it away.